Hey guys, it's me Shane. I'm here to give you another Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation episode review and recap. Today's episode is episode 21, known as Turning Point 2. Oh boy. If you remember about Turning Point Part 1, it was a freaking disaster. I believe that was actually the Mana disaster, which was very much a turning point. The issues throughout the series after the first turning point was felt of the Mana disaster. Families broken up, people being put into slavery, people dying, regimes being toppled, the works. Now, some of the stuff Rudy knows about, some of the stuff Rudy doesn't know about, but it's just man. And before I get into this wonderful episode, which I have to say, I think I said last week's was my number one episode. If I give myself a minute to just, remember last week's episode with the sister, I said was number one. This actually tops it. I hate how correct I am that this is one of the series where every episode builds on top of the last one, and this even goes back to the past. And one of the highlights, before I get into the review, one of the highlights is just I love feeling the growth of the characters. It's so subtle that they've made the characters taller. Not Ruijerd, but they've made Eris and Rudy taller. But you have to pay attention to it because Eris looks less like a teen. She looks like she's filling out to be a young woman, right? And Rudy looks less like a little boy, and he looks like he's becoming that young man. And I don't even think he's 15 yet, but he's growing, and it's just is growing in wisdom and strength, and his emotional he has emotional growth too, and it's amazing. And so, since we're talking about growth, hey, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you're new here? Give me a like and hit me up in the comment section down below. I'm actually very, very interested in knowing how people feel about this episode and this series. Funny enough, this series has gotten a dub. I like the Japanese voices way too much because that's how I started, and that's how I'm going to continue to finish. I'm actually wondering when season 2 is going to come out. I wonder how many episodes is left in this first season because this is 21. Typically, shows have 24 episode seasons, so we'll probably get 3 more episodes, and then we're going to take a break probably until 2022, which I'm all for. They'll probably take a break and we'll come right back in January, if not March. Anyhow, let's get right on into this. This thing starts with seeing an eye, and I said, man, that looks like a dragon eye, and how appropriate, how apt that is. We see Ruijerd face down in snow. We see Eris against a rock, and Rudy's talking to us, and Rudy spitting up blood, like regurgitating it. And he's talking to us, and he says, it happens in an instant. Your parents die, your siblings kick you out, which I didn't know those were his siblings that kicked him out. You get hit by a truck, reborn in a new world. Your father packs you off to tutor a young noblewoman, and suddenly you're teleported to a new continent. And sometimes people suddenly die, and there's a man standing before him. That was a flash forward. I love this show. Is one of the few shows that does flash forwards and flashbacks amazingly well. Because the flash forward was done before the intro, and as we all know, the intro has like speaking parts and what's going on. It plays into where they're going instead of having a boring ass filler part of watching people move and go and whatever. It does a great job of incorporating it. So we see them going through the mountains. Rudy's trailing behind because those two are strong and they're good at doing this. He's just, I'm gonna get there when I get there, guys. He heals their ox. He makes water for the ox to drink. They finally get to this like rock village. Like it looks like a village made inside of a crater and looks really good, really really good. Suddenly there's red dragons roaring as they find lodging, and Eris really wants really bad to go hunt one, which, man, again, apt. I'm telling you guys, I've looked up some stuff on Wikipedia, Wikipedia on the Wikia, which doesn't really count because even though you will know major parts, and I use quotation for major parts, you don't know how you get there, especially when it comes to the light novel. The manga's still going on, but there are people who hard stand. I hate saying stand. Hard stand for the light novel. Some people that hard stand for the manga. And here I am, just a degenerate anime watcher, because I can't find a light novel. And if you have a website for a light novel, hook me up. But yeah, but apparently people are saying that this is following the light novel very well because the manga has skipped a lot of stuff. Which okay, to each their own. But anyway, Rudy's making food while the others are training, and holy shit, I'm so glad I don't do play by plays for fights unless it's major parts. They are incredibly fast. Like Ruijerd's doing that cool spear stab move that some people do, and Eris is doing her damn thing. But when they get to a clash and he gets her blade down, she is visibly out of breath. He is not. But Ruijerd smiles. He's happy about all this. Rudy throws them both towels, and Eris, she has to go through her clothes to dry herself out. She's not gonna take her clothes off there. And Ruijerd, RJ as I like to call him, he says from this day forward, she can call herself a warrior. But in Japanese, it's a senshi. Senshi sounds so much better than warrior, but senshi, right? And I'm gonna say senshi for the rest of this, just to let you know. And she's like, "Wait, really?" And he's like, "Yeah, you've grown up." And she's like, "I'd never beaten you before, though." He said, "That doesn't matter. You've gotten really, really strong. You're a full-fledged senshi." And Rudy congratulates her, and you know, she says, "Oh man, does this mean I'm dreaming?" He's like, "Pinch me." He's like, "You're gonna punch me, are you?" And she's like, "No, just go ahead and pinch me." Of course, he pinches her on the nipple. She punches him. This man goes spinning and flying. Again, didn't realize that was a foreshadow for later, but it was. Goes spinning in the air. She's like, "Don't punch me there." And he says, "Well, I wouldn't be in this much pain if you were dreaming." And she's just happy. Of course, Rudy says sorry, but she's happy. He says, "Don't get conceited now. This just means I'm not going to treat you as a child anymore," which is an all moment because the way he said it, it makes sense. If you know Ruijerd, his whole deal is protecting children, making sure they're okay. He is more or less a defender of the weak and defenseless, which is amazing. He cannot he cannot stand by and watch anyone just get hurt. Which, not saying Rudy was like that before, but that attitude has easily bled into Rudeus. Easily. It's given him more confidence, I will say that, because he's always wanted to do the right thing, but when you're given a second chance at life, you don't want to squander it. Which I can see as to why he's always done the right thing, because he's fulfilled every promise he's ever said. He says, "If I get a second chance in life, I ain't gonna be lazy, no nothing," and he's not. Yay, Rudeus. Anyway, more snowy travel, unfortunately, and yeah, Eris has to pull. Rudy looks like he's afraid of heights. She pulls him forward near a ledge because he's all the way in the back and they're all the way forward. And she pulls him forward. There are red dragons, like hovering and talking to one another, doing red dragon shit. And she wants to go fight one. She really wants to hunt one. And Ruger's like, "Come on, be reasonable," with a smile on his face, mind you. And she's like, Rudy, Rudeus, you can probably beat one, right?" And he's like, "Hell no." I'm like, "No. I heard that red dragons, they travel in flocks and, you know, uh, they're pretty strong, right?" And he looks for RJ for confirmation. RJ says, "Yeah, even the lesser of the greater seven powers," which is like our big, for One Piece fans, they're like the Shishibukai, which I don't know if the Shishibukai still exist in One Piece. And they're also like the four emperors in One Piece, right? Or even like the four emperors in Yu Yu Hakusho. Just these strong, overarching people. Although Yu Yu Hakusho one's probably a bad example because they got their asses whooped. But regardless, he was saying even the lesser of them will be forced to turn back. And Eris is like, "Really?" And Rudy's thinking about back to, remember when they were going into town, they had geese with them. He's like, "Oh, you mean the names that are on that stone?" And RJ tells him, "Yeah, actually, the strongest of them could probably take on a whole flock by himself." And I was like, "Holy shit!" And Rudy's just like, "Wow." And he remembers, he's like, "So the technique guy is number one, and the dragon guy is number two, if he remembers correctly." So he's like, "Man, there sure are strong people out there." The moment he says that, both Eris and Ruijerd start moving. Ruijerd, he's gripping his spear tightly, and Rudy just wondering what's up, and he's looking out because now they're kind of like in a overpass. How do I say? If you ever gone underneath a viaduct, they're like in a snowy viaduct because there's a cliff to one side, there's the wall on the other side, and there's nothing but snow obscuring vision. But it takes, and I love the suspense of this moment. It takes a good 10 to 15 seconds, and that's a long time. There's a long time, mind you, while they're waiting for these people to come. And as they're walking past, we have seen this man before. During Turning Point 1, when all hell broke loose, when Eris and Rudy were both in the Demon Continent, we saw this guy stare down a red dragon that almost pissed itself and flew off. And I know who this guy is, but I'm going to wait for when they introduce him. And there's a young woman. We know it's a young woman because they speak. And they are called a she, but that has a mask on. Kind of like a Haku kind of thing, which is why I waited to see whom they were, if they were a he, she, or they. They're a she. And they walk past them. And Ruijerd tells both of them don't move an inch. The fucking ox runs off the cliff, just full on suicides off the cliff, and even Rudy turns around like, "What the fuck?" And this guy walks past them, and he's like, "Wait a minute," because now he's past them. Like them cowering in fear, he just whatever. It's a Tuesday, and he stops. He's like, "Wait a minute, is that Ruijerd?" Wait a minute, where am I at here? And I found out how to properly say it. It's Spartia. Is that Ruijerd Spartia I hear? And you're Eris Boreas Greyrat. And Rudy sees him in his demon eye, but he has to hold his head. He's like, I don't recognize you. And the other two of them are just like, why do you know us? And he's like, I didn't expect to encounter you guys here, but whatever, that's not important. I already know what's up, and I'll inform you guys towards the end. It's a spoiler that you're not gonna remember. So let's continue. And the girl man says, "Is that not important?" He says, "I can't do anything about it right now anyway." And Rudy says, "Excuse me." And Eris and Ruijerd look shook. They're like, "What are you doing?" And I realize why they look like this. And I'll just interject now because they're in fear of this guy. His name is Orsted. Because they're in fear of Orsted. They're wondering how is he able to even speak to him without having to reply back, because they spoke back to him in reply. And Rudy's just like, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm," he asks Rudy, "Who is he?" And Rudy says, "I'm Rudeus Greyrat." He's like, "You're a Greyrat, okay? Well, what's your name?" "My name's Orsted." Orsted is a name you need to remember. "So how do you know them?" He's like, "Well, technically I haven't met them yet." "What do you mean?" "Yeah, you don't need to know that." "So which branch of Greyrat are you from?" "I'm from Paul Greyrat." He's like, "Paul Greyrat should only have 2 daughters. He didn't have any kids, any sons." And inside Rudeus is like, "How rude." Paul's son takes right after him, and that warms my heart because they have grown close through tragedy. I love it and essentially, yes, he is like his father. I'm gonna be honest, we actually don't know if he was perverted in the past world or if this is just some of Paul's genes that have, congealed with this dude that used to be a NEET. Just throwing it out there. And so he takes a step towards him, and Ruijerd says, "Don't come any closer." And Orsa says, "I see you look me in the eyes," because Rudy has been looking him in the eyes the whole entire time. And that's an important thing to note. Looking him in the eyes is important to note. Which I hope I remember to look down. Look in eyes. So he said, I'd really like to stop because the look in your eyes is pretty terrifying. He's like, "Oh, well, so what do you want?" And he asks him, "Do you know anything about the mana disaster?" And the guy says, just flat out, we see his mouth. He says, "I don't." He's like, "All right, I'm sorry to bother you." And Orsted says, "Do you happen to know, does the word man god mean anything to you?" The moment Rudy turns around and says, "Yes, he comes in my dreams," he sees in his eye Orsted coming and stabbing him in the stomach. But RJ blocks that shit with his spear. And he's telling and this force is making Eris and Rudeus slide backwards. And while he's talking, I love how everything overlaps. I love how the how the subtitles work on this. While dude is talking, he says, "So you're apostle of the man god." That's it. Ruijerd is like, "Rudeus, run," and they have the quickest fight I've ever seen. But it's fantastic. He is doing those super quick jabs. The man, God, Orsted is not even moving, just block, 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 and every once in a while he hits him a couple of times, which makes RJ kind of move back a bit. But he's like, ah! This guy gets one moment to just block, punch to the side, punch in the neck, and another hit. 3 hits sends Ruijerd spinning like Rudy was earlier when Eris had punched him. And he lands so awkwardly. I'm like, oh shit, I think Ruijerd might be dead. As he's not moving. Spear clatters on the ground. Both Rudeus and Eris watch this happen. And just the art in this fight is fantastic. Rudy's stunning. Orsted's coming before him, but before he's about to die. He can see again the move happen, and that is one of the greatest things about this eye. In Naruto, the Sharingan is made to be like the ultimate thing, along with the Byakugan, because it's like, oh, if you can see somebody's moves, and you know where they're going to travel, you can easily deflect it. No, I love the fact that even though he can see what's going to happen, he can't stop it. That's amazing. So Eris comes around. She does her battle cry and brings her blade around. This dude catches it with 2 hands. I thought he was gonna break it, but he just punches her one time. She goes into the wall, gives a little call for blood, and just falls down. And he's and I give him credit because he could be a total jackass and not look at her, but he looks at her and he says, "Oh wow, you've gotten stronger. I always thought you had potential, but you just lacked polish." Rudy shook. She's out. Rudy can see all the things that's going to happen to him. Like he sees blood splattering from his head, so he covers his ears, and unfortunately, what does he do? What does he do? It's so he wouldn't pop. And I realized he did this so he wouldn't pop his head off because dude grabs him by his sides, by his chest, and just squeezes a little bit, and he's coughing up blood now. And he said, "But before you die, I want you to tell the man God this. Tell him Dragon God Orsted is going to kill you." So Rudy's coughing up blood. He's on the ground, just he's dying. And Air starts to chant for the fireball, but she coughs up more blood and it fizzles out. This gives Rudy enough chance to do a ground drill that Orsted blocks it, but it makes a black spot on his hand. And he thinks, and Orsted says, "So incantationless spells, the man god did he give you that power?" Rudy has no time to respond to any of this shit. I don't know. This is such a casual thing for Orsted to be able to beat their asses and kill Rudy, that he can have this side conversation while Rudy is like, "I gotta fight for my life, man." And Rudy's trying to do fireballs and stuff while coughing up blood, and the guy Orsted's just like, "All right, enough of that stuff." He does disturb magic, which is basically, if you know D&D, it's like counterspell. And he keeps fizzling out the fireball, but Rudy does a wind gust to blast himself back to get some distance between them. He calls Rudy a crafty one, and he summons, like, it looks like a dragon mirror, but there's no mirror part. There's like a dragon part here, and it's a circle-ish thing in front of him. Rudy uses his crafting to get the ground to prop him up as he charges another fireball. This thing changes color. It goes from the normal orangish red, deep red, blue, green. This thing is full purple fireball that is growing in size. And it's strong enough that it's melting the ice in this cavern all around them. This little icy viaduct, as I like to call it. He fires this thing. This and Orsted says open worm gate. First of all, cool ass name for whatever magic moves he's doing. Love it. And it takes the blow and it makes the dragon gate crack. And he Orsted is saying, wow, like that's an incredible quality of mana. He might be on par with Laplace. Laplace is a name that is very important that you need to remember. So Rui's coughing up more blood because he's like he can't do much. Orsted picks him up by his neck and says, "So why don't you use your incantationalist magic to heal your lungs?" And it doesn't matter. You're gonna die. He says, "Doesn't matter. Die." Stabs this man through the chest, full on Wesker stab, Dio stab, just right on in there. And Eris is calling out to him. And this part was making me tear up. Because if you've ever been in a situation, if you've ever been around people calling out while someone is dying, actively dying, stuff like this will get you kind of shook, especially if you hear the emotion in the actress's voice. Um, you know, Rudy is, saying he doesn't want to die. He hasn't fulfilled his promise. Just let him live 2 more years, then he can die without regrets. He's talking about he'll slowly build up his mana. And where am I at here? So the young lady that's with him, her name is Nanahoshi, and she calls to Orsted and says, "Hold on a second." He's like, "What's up, Nanahoshi?" Because he tells her, "Let's go." Eris is calling out. She's like, "Ruijerd, Ghislaine, Mama, Papa, anybody, just help me." She doesn't want Rudy to die. Rudy's dying. And the chick, Nanahoshi says, Orsted, something's actually bothering me. Maybe he's, and right when she says that, Rudy's out. There's a white light. He's in that old form of his body. Big ass hole right here in his chest. And the man guy's just like, "Man, you seem different." He's like, "Well, as you can see, I have a hole in my chest." And he's like, "Let me ask you something here. Uh, why is it that this guy attacked me the moment he heard your name?" And of course, the man guy goes, "Oh, he's the wicked dragon god, and I'm good. So he's coming after me." And I wrote in here, "I refuse to believe that you're good. Not just because I've read forward in the story, but because this show is all about things are not as they appear to be, right?" Rudeus, who is a young man, has the mental capacity of a 30 to 40-year-old. He's not what he seems. He's from a different world. Ruijerd Spartia. He's supposed to be the scary demon man, but he's really not. He's just a protector of the weak and just, protector of the weak, protector children. And I get the strong feeling that the man god is not whom he wants Rudy to believe he is, because Rudy catches him up in another lie, but I'm getting to that. And Rudy even speaks in quotation. He's like, "Good, huh? Well, you sure make a lot of enemies. Why didn't you warn me about him?" Well, unfortunately, I can't see anything that has to do with the dragon god. I can't see his present or his future. And, I had no idea you'd be bumping into him. That's how his curse works. And he informs Rudy about the cursed children. We know about the cursed children because someone told, because Aisha told Eris. But the cursed children, he says, there's these weird cursed children. Orsted is one of them. And he has 3 curses. So he has 2 or 3 other curses. He says 3 other curses, but I'm going to assume he has a total of 3 to 4 curses, right? And he says, you saw how, Ruijerd and Eris were afraid of him. That's one of the curses. He's feared and hated by every living thing in his world, but not Rudy. And Rudeus is thinking, man, everyone hates him. And he ponders, he's like, man, that must really suck. I'm loving where the seeds are already planted for this situation. Because he's like, wow, this dude is hated and feared by everybody. That must be super lonely, right? And he's like, wait a minute. I don't hate him or fear him. What's up with that? Maybe because you're from another world. It's the same thing with Ruijerd. Remember when you met him? He's like, RJ's cursed? Well, no, it's the curse of spears. Laplace transferred a curse to spears and it passed on to the Superds. Supardia is his name, so Superds. And Laplace is the person that Orsted said that Rudeus seems like he is on par with. That is the person, and I believe that Ruijerd mentioned all the way around that turning point one, the couple episodes after, what was the issue, explaining to Rudy, someone who we fought with, Laplace, he lied. He lied to us, and he turned everyone against us. And his son was the one that got him to not go into that crazy battle frenzy. And the spear either has his son's soul or is made in memory of his son, or I think it is his son's spear because they are spear people. And that's insane that we are getting so many name drops that are callbacks to things that you gotta remember and pay attention to, especially if you're paying attention to the whole. The story as a whole is amazing. Excuse me, but anyway, he's saying that the curse is almost gone. Ruijerd still has a little bit on him. It's been fading ever since he shaved his hair. And Rudy's like, really? And he says, yeah, it's because Laplace's hair is green too. And Rudy really doesn't understand how curses work, but I guess that's how it works. Um, and he's like, but that doesn't really matter, right? Manga's like, he's overcoming prejudice with hard work, ever since he's met you. And Rudy just thinks to himself, he's like, wow, so it wasn't all for nothing. He actually did a good thing, and he's actually super happy that he was able to do something. And he never thought that Ruijerd would ever get taken out like that. He's like, well, he doesn't really stand a chance against Orsted. Orsted's he's the strongest of the seven great powers, and he's even the strongest, even with curses holding him back. And just like Rudy, we are like Rudy. We're taking. He's like, really? He thought he was number two because the technique guy's supposed to be number one. Man God informs him, well, technique God is number one. If they really fought, Orsted would win, which is like, fuck, wow. So, um, Rudy points out a thing that is so important to grasp. You sure do know a lot about this guy, considering you can't see him. And the man guy just goes, and Rudy's like, honestly, I don't even care. You know, you like um RJ. You helped me manage to save Aisha and Lilia. What's a few lies next to that? So I'm never gonna see you again anyway, right? And he's like, why is that? I'm dead. You know. And he's like, wow, you're really different than when we met before. He's like, that's because last time when I died, I had no clue what was going on. This time, I guess that's just life. I got unlucky. And he considers himself lucky in the first place that he even got a second chance at life, even though he has unfinished business. He is super mature. Super mature. And you're thinking to yourself, yeah, he's supposed to be. But think about the life he led in a different world, where his trauma was so emotionally crippling, it kind of, he acts like a kid in this world because technically he is a child, he is a teenager, he is a kid, but he wasn't able to socialize with more people because of that trauma that no one took the time to help him get through. The fact that he stuck to his word and said, I'm gonna live my life way better in this world than I did in my first chance. And he's looking at all the good sides of the things that he was able to do. And he's like, well, now this is like his goodbye for us. And the man guy goes, well, I got good news for you. You're not dead. And as he wakes up, he's in Eris's lap. The hole in his chest is all closed up. He throws up more blood. And he's wondering how he's alive. And she said the woman said something to Orsted, and then he came over and healed him. And he's like, she remembers her name was Nanahoshi, is what he called her. Here's what's funny. He's a bad guy, huh? But he came over and healed him. And even Rudy goes, why would he heal someone that he just killed? And just interesting to note, Nanahoshi, I believe, means star. I believe that means star. Hoshi is star, and I think Nana's kind of like I don't know, so it's like star something, but it's star anyway. Um, Rudy, RJ is knocked out. She even told him, she's like, yeah, he said they didn't kill him, he's just unconscious, and he turns over and hugs onto her waist, and she says, man, you're feeling really cheeky. And he said, I. It was hard to understand what he was saying, even with the translation. I think he was just saying he has a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings and stuff going on through his head. So, yeah. And she says, so you wouldn't mind if I punched you? And he's like, not one bit. And she gives him just like a light tap on the top of his head, and she's starting to sob on his face. And she calls him stupid, and he's like, I'm sorry I made you worried, but she's just so glad he's not dead. Like, she's happy he's alive. And, he goes and consoles her because they just went through some tough shit. Um, Next episode is called Dreams and Reality. So, things to talk about. When he said, you're looking me in the eye, that was a clue for Orsted that Rudeus was more than what he appeared to be. Because everyone else was in fear of Orsted. That's part of the curse. Everybody but Nanahoshi for some reason. But, that's part of the curse, right? So when he's like, you're looking me in the eye, that was the hint for him. Now, is it because Rudy comes from a different world? That's not being afraid of him thing. That is a really important thing that's going to play out later on. One of the curses I'm just going to let you know. One of the curses that I know. I think he's in a time loop. Actually, I actually know for a fact why that is, but he's kind of in a time loop. That's why he remembers RJ and Eris, because he has met them before. He has met them before. How many times before, I don't remember, but I told you I was going to sprinkle a little bit of stuff I already knew. But let's consider this. He is a bad guy, but he healed this kid. All intents and purposes, they lost. Rudy should be dead, but he isn't, because he didn't let him die because of something that Nanahoshi paid attention to. Flat out, the man god is lying, and Rudeus knows he's lying. So now that he's alive, he has something to ponder. On top of that, now he needs to reveal to his friends about the man god and talk to them and say, so this is what's going on. I didn't mention it to you. And he's going to do that because he's been forthright. I love in shows when characters are forthright and only hold things back when they're trying to get more information on it, which is why he hasn't told them about it. He's going to be forthright and saying, yeah, but there's something about this guy I don't trust. On top of all that, he knows he was lying. He's like, you can't see this guy, but you know an awful lot about him. I know you're lying. And I love the fact that Rudy continues to play. He plays, how do I put this? He plays nice, and while he tries to build up and figure out what's going on. And I'm looking forward to seeing how all this plays out. This story probably won't end for like another 4 to 5 years max, given what I know, because looks like we're coming towards the end of this arc, or at least this first season. Although we still don't know what Zenith is, still don't know what Sylphiette is. Although I know what Sylphiette is. We haven't gotten Eris back home yet. We're almost there, but man, so much good stuff in this episode. Animation, top notch. Great pacing even when doing flashbacks. Best anime of 2021 by far. Please, 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 please let me know what you thought of all this in the comment section down below. Hit the like button because it definitely helps us out here. We're trying to get all the way up to 200 subscribers, guys. So hit that subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell if you're not new here. And either way it goes, share the video so others can see what a great discussion we're having. I know this ran a little bit long, but there's stuff to tell you. There's stuff to tell you. And the funny part is, even the little spoiler bits I gave you, it's not even enough. That's not even as spoilery as it could have gotten. And that's what I love about the show. There's always more. So please, be good, be blessed. I thank you once more for taking some time out to spend some time with me. Please, wash your hands, wear a mask, be good to yourself, be good to others. Either way it goes, don't be a jerk. You are never alone in this world. There's someone there that cares about you. And I will definitely see you guys next time.